Okay, so something a little different again. This isn't about women. This isn't about some kind of a humorous topic. This is a video by a channel called Mindflow. Link will be in the description. And it's called What Actually Matters in Your 20s. I stumbled across this video in my recommended feed, watched a couple of minutes, and I thought, yeah, let's see if I agree. I'm 33 years old for context. Without further ado, let's roll the clip and see what we agree and disagree on.
You're 25, scrolling through Instagram, seeing peers with dream jobs.
That's your first mistake. Scrolling on Instagram, seeing your peers with dream jobs, girlfriends, yachts, cars, boats, crypto investments, watches, Prada, Gucci, Louis Vuitton. That's your first mistake. Get off that shit.
Exotic vacations, and picture-perfect relationships. That familiar anxiety creeps in. Are you falling behind? The shocking truth is that what society glorifies about your 20s has almost nothing to do with what actually matters for long-term fulfillment and success.
Let's just take pause for a moment. What does society actually glorify in your 20s? I'm really trying to honestly answer that question, say it was posed to me, which in a way in this video it is. Suppose society glorifies your 20s as work hard in the sense of you finish high school, pursue a trade, long hours, university, go hard out, not only graduate but with honors, further education, get a master's degree, doctoral, basically grind the crap out of your 20s so you reach some kind of societal status, income. As Antonio Montana said in one of my favorite movies of all time, in this country, you gotta get the money. When you get the money, you get the power. When you got the power, then you get the woman.
Most people chase visible markers of achievement while completely neglecting the invisible foundation.
Boom! Very well said. So what gets neglected? Stability, health, finance, sturdiness, which is another word for stability, knowledge. So many people have absolutely no knowledge on the basicest of topics, and experience essentially ties in with knowledge. Experience, to tell you, is mostly gained through bad decisions or poor decision making, and poor decisions are generally made from a lack of experience. So there's experience that you can gain from, say, you're doing an apprenticeship, you're learning from a mechanic, you're starting to become more independent in the profession that you're doing, you're gaining experience. But you can also gain experience through the times you get kicked to the curb, through the times that you spend in the dumps, where you think that this situation can't possibly get worse. The silver lining is sometimes when you experience something that other people around you have only heard about, and potentially not even that, you know when you come out on top of it, out the other side, of what that experience was like and how to deal with it. That's where people like counselors, peer support workers, even psychologists that have been through the shit make some of the best advocates in those sort of fields that can relate and be very professional with, say, addicts, people who experience mental health and mental health related comorbidities, because they can share their experience, not just textbook knowledge through, say, a university.
That determine their future. Today, I'll show you exactly what to focus on in your 20s that nobody talks about, but everyone wishes they'd known. This isn't about grinding harder or living wilder. It's about the unsexy, high-leverage work that makes your 30s, 40s, and beyond truly legendary. 2 years ago, I was at a reunion with college friends. Everyone was sharing impressive updates, promotions, engagements, home ownership. When my turn came, I had nothing spectacular to report. I'd spent the year rebuilding my mental health, ending toxic friendships, and clarifying my values, all invisible work with zero status attached. That night, I felt like a failure. I created a mental scorecard of all the things I should have accomplished by 27 and beat myself up for every unchecked box. What I didn't realize then was that I'd fallen into what psychologists call narrative conformity, judging my life progress by a cultural script rather than by what would actually serve my long-term well-being. Let me tell you, the science behind this is fascinating. Research shows that your 20s aren't just an extended adolescence. They're a critical developmental period where your brain is undergoing its final major reorganization.
It's true what they say, that the habits, behaviors, and essentially decision making that you undertake in your 20s, all the way up until about 25, 26, 27 years old, in men, women's, I should say, brains develop a lot sooner than men's. A man's brain generally is considered fully developed at around 25 years old, which is where I think that there is plausible cause for, say, raising the drinking rate, but that's another can of worms in itself. You're doing quite a lot of damage, not only to your neurons and nervous system, but you are throwing your brain chemistry completely out of whack, which even cannabis can affect your development, because as it's showing here, as we're being reported here in this video, it's a developmental stage, not only for your body but for your brain. And impacting it with drugs, I'm talking even things like antidepressants, which I think are too easily prescribed nowadays. They pull out the DAS index when you go to a psychologist, even a GP nowadays, and they basically measure your distress and anxiety. It's like a depression and anxiety scale. All right. It asks you 1 to 5 questions. I'm not going to go too far into it. You can Google what a DAS is. I'm sure you can even do the test online. And then they calculate a score and they basically see how depressed and anxious you are. And then as soon as you reach a particular threshold, just about any GP will prescribe you antidepressants. See, the problem with antidepressants is that antidepressants isn't, say, even like a sleeping medication, where you're told to take it PRN, as required. You take it one night, then again you might not take it for another 4, 5, 6, 7 nights. You might not take it again for another month when you just desperately need sleep. Now, antidepressants are something that you not only take daily, but you are supposed to take them long term. We're talking at a bare minimum, antidepressants are taken for about 6 months, and even then that's extremely rare. They're generally prescribed for about 9 to 12 months. Some people I have met that are on antidepressants for years, decades even. And if you get put on such medication that is supposed to alter your brain's chemistry in your 20s, before realistically your brain's even developed, you're already rewiring yourself. You're essentially rewiring the way your brain is developing before it's even had a chance to fully finish construction, for lack of a better word.
During this time, your prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning, decision-making, and self-regulation, is still being refined. This makes your 20s both incredibly malleable and consequential. What most people don't understand is that there's an invisible opportunity cost to chasing the wrong things during this pivotal decade. Every year spent optimizing for external validation is a year not spent building the internal foundations that actually determine your capacity for success and fulfillment later. Think about it this way.
So this is another thing I don't really agree with a lot of people in views of my success later. Later isn't guaranteed. Later isn't guaranteed for you. Later isn't guaranteed for me. Tomorrow is not promised. You don't know what's going to happen. People go to bed thinking that they're in perfect health and they don't wake up the next day. Some people get behind the wheel just to go to work. A life-altering event can occur. It can happen any day, any given time. You don't know your final destination, which is why I'm not in alignment with the views of planning ahead. The people that plan 10, let alone 20, 30 years ahead, I'm going to be this, that, and the other when I'm in my late 40s, in my 50s. You don't even know you're going to be there. Steve Jobs, I don't think he knew he was going to be there. millions upon maybe billions of dollars, all to nothing. You aren't going to live forever. So when it comes to living life, my philosophy on it is, especially if you're doing harm to no one and nothing, live it for today. That's my best piece of advice. That's the best sort of philosophy that I could possibly bestow upon you in this video. Sorry, I got mildly distracted. I should really start putting my phone on silent when I do these videos, because you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I'm not saying be on a perpetual pleasure chasing hunt. Do whatever the hell it is that makes you happy and make utterly rubbish decisions. Blow tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars in a matter of months to a year and then be left with nothing. There has to be a certain element of planning, yes. But you don't know that the happiness that you've got envisioned down the road is potentially going to actually give you that fulfillment that you're thinking about now. So say me right now, 33 years old, I've got a plan in place and I'm thinking if I follow those steps, I'm going to get to this particular place, which means that when I'm in my mid-40s, that's going to equate to me being happy. That's the plan, but that's not the guarantee. I'm not even saying that if I make it to my mid-40s. I'm saying that it's not guaranteed that that's going to make me feel fulfilled. Think about yourself when you were a kid, when you were maybe 15, 16 years old, and now perhaps you're watching this video, you're 22, 25, just about to turn 30. What would have made you happy as a 16, 17, 18-year-old is probably not the same things right now, you being 25, 26, if you had to answer those questions again. What is it that you want that will make you happy? Maybe you wouldn't have batted an eye to something like, yeah, a stable, monogamous, wholesome relationship would have made me happy. You probably weren't thinking that when you were 18 years old. But all of a sudden, now you're in your mid to late 20s, you're thinking, yeah, she doesn't have to be a 9 or an 8. She could be an average looking girl, but she's faithful, loyal. She shows humility and she cares for me. I can trust her. She trusts me. Our relationship's a two-way street. I'm fulfilled. All of a sudden, that translates to happiness.
Would you rather spend your 20s constructing an impressive-looking house with structural problems beneath the surface, or building an unimpressive foundation that can eventually support a magnificent structure? Most people choose the former without realizing it. In a moment, I'm going to share the 3 invisible investments that create exponential returns in your life.
Health is number one. I don't care what he says. Health is number one. If you don't have good health, you can live in Buckingham Palace with a sex slave around every single corner.
Ones that nobody applauds you for in your 20s, but everyone envies you for by 35. But first, we need to understand the fundamental misconception that's costing an entire generation their potential.
What do
the core
people envy
problem
me for?
is that we've confused the markers of success with the makers of success. We chase the symbols, the title, the relationship status, the apartment, rather than developing the
Who chases a relationship status? Just trying to wrap my head around it. What man out there is... I suppose it depends what your network is. In certain professions, marriage is, in a way, a symbol of status. Like a king. A king can't just be divorced. Think about how it would look on a world stage if Donald Trump announced that he's getting divorced, or Vladimir Putin. My wife left me. It's not a good look on a world stage in a certain profession. But otherwise, for the common man, I don't think anyone's particularly chasing relationship quote-unquote status.
Capacities that naturally produce these outcomes over time. This confusion creates what I call the early achievement paradox. The more desperately you chase external markers of success in your 20s, the more likely you are to make compromises.
Okay, so you chase cool image, superficial status, people's opinion, reputation. Look, people's opinion, I said this in other videos, people that say they don't judge are outright lying. Everyone judges, you're always judged for something. Right now, men as a whole if you're up to date with current affairs, as a whole, are judged in, say, fields like childcare services. Perhaps even primary to secondary school teachers that are men are being scrutinized because of the actions of a lowly few. There is people's opinion and people's judgment in every single scenario where you have an interaction with people, whether it's consciously or even subconsciously. And your reputation can follow you.
That undermine your long...
So to portray it like such, like, oh, you're only chasing those things and you're neglecting those others, you have to find a balance. Cool image, superficial status, people's opinions and reputation, they do matter. Because some of those things, for example, people's opinions and reputation of you, say you're pursuing a job in medicine, but your reputation is horrid. You go from hospital to hospital and there's this reputation. I watched this movie called The Good Nurse, where the male nurse kept changing hospitals and he was lacing saline solution with insulin and essentially killing people. You know, he was coding people at random. And before it was even proven, he had a reputation that there was something off with him, that there was something wrong. He had a negative reputation and negative opinion of other people that followed him around until he was ultimately caught. Superficial status, cool image, that goes hand in hand with people's opinions. You can't go, it's like going to a job interview wearing a Gretty t-shirt and tracksuit pants. I wouldn't say that's superficial status or cool image. That's professionalism, which equates to people's opinion and equates to the kind of reputation, the kind of first impression you put out there. So it all matters. But yes, I agree with this right here, that people do tend to sacrifice mental health, inner peace. They do bottle up emotions and can sometimes put genuine relationships on the back burner. Plenty of women do it that choose career over family. And then they realize that they've gone, as this image shows, they've gone too far to one side. And sometimes you can't go back. You can address your mental health. You can try to find inner peace. But sometimes certain things go too far astray and you can't turn back the clock.
Long-term trajectory. You take the prestigious job you hate, stay in the toxic relationship for status, or accumulate debt, maintaining an image you can't afford. All decisions that compound negatively over time. Let me be clear, I'm not saying achievements in your 20s don't matter. They absolutely can. But they must be byproducts of the right focus, not the focus itself. The right focus is what I call identity capital. The invisible assets you build within yourself that no one can take away and that appreciate over time. But what exactly should you be building instead? That's exactly what I'm about to show you. After studying the patterns of people who thrive not just in their 20s, but consistently through life, I've identified what I call the ICE method, 3 foundational elements that create exponential returns over time.
That's also what Trump calls the agents that deported all the Mexicans out of California.
I stands for identity formation. This is the process of discovering and solidifying who you actually are, separate from external expectations and cultural programming. C stands for capacity building. This involves developing your ability to produce value, manage complexity, and navigate uncertainty, skills that compound over decades. E stands for energy protection. This is about creating boundaries and systems that preserve your most precious resource, your physical, mental, and emotional energy. Most people's approach to their 20s fails dramatically in all 3 areas. Here's what it typically looks like. You graduate college and immediately optimize for salary or status. You take a job based primarily on how it sounds to others, not on whether it builds valuable skills or aligns with your authentic interest.
Never met anyone who took a job because it sounded cool or was trending. Can't say I've met anyone who has ever done that. Generally, people go into a job that they think that they want to do, and they have a certain degree of interest towards it. Yeah, I can't say I agree, because I've never come across anyone who took a job because they thought it sounded cool. Maybe sounded cool goes part and parcel with the fact that they're interested in it, but solely for the reason of trend and cool status, can't say I've met anyone like that.
You adopt the lifestyle and beliefs of your peer group without questioning them. You say yes to every opportunity and relationship out of FOMO, spreading yourself too thin to excel at.
Look, generally that's going to be the case though with any job. Cool, trending, high status, low status, your entry level. Someone's going to be the boss of you no matter where you go. Whether you go to Macca's, there's going to be a manager overseeing what you do. Whether you join the army, you're not going to have a rank and there's going to be multiple people that are overseeing you. There was a time in the army when my, what did we even call him? Section commander was 2 to 3 years younger than me. But he had status over me. Some people fresh out of military college done troon, about 20 years old. They're lieutenants. They're officers. And you've got sergeants that have been in the army for 10, 15 years, saluting them. Well, technically, they're saluting the crown. They're not actually saluting the person. But that's a whole nother can of worms. My point with this is your peers are going to influence you in any job that you take. Whether it's the lowest paid minimum wage job at a fast food joint or some high status big shot law firm, wherever you go, there's going to be peer pressure because you're the new kid. You're the FNG, the fucking new guy.
Anything. You ignore signs of burnout, pushing through with caffeine and weekend recovery. My friend, I know this pattern intimately because I lived it. In my early 20s, I took a prestigious consulting job that looked impressive, but taught me few transferable skills. I maintained friendships that drained me because they connected me to important people. I said yes to every project, networking event, and happy hour until I was running on empty.
That's the aim of the game, I think, though. I think the way he's saying it is he disagrees, or he's leading into the next thing he's going to say that it burnt him out. But that's the name of the game. If you're the FNG, you take on every project. You take on every networking event. Because it comes back to something that we spoke about earlier. Judgment, your reputation, and the way people perceive you. You can't be the new guy and everyone is going to happy hour, everyone is attending networking events, but you want to be the grey man and in the shadows. It's not exactly going to work out for you in the long term either, playing that kind of a game, especially when you're the one that has to stand out. You have to perform. You have to get on that same level or catch up. So then when the new guys start coming in after you, you can be the one that sort of starts to slip off in the shadows, that self-manages his own time, that maybe attends a few less networking events, that decides to give happy hour a miss more often than not. But when you're the FNG, that's your prerogative. Burnout or not, tired or not, can be bothered or not. You don't want to build a reputation that you're the loner, especially in this kind of corporate environment of what he's describing. You don't want to stick out for those reasons. So then it comes back to, well, what industry are you going into? How important is it? Because if you're in an industry where you've got an entire office, a whole group of colleagues, you've got people overseeing you left and right, fitting in is part of the job.
The result? By 28, I had an impressive resume, but low fulfillment, surface-level relationships, and chronic exhaustion. I was building a life that looked good, but felt terrible. What's your experience been with this tension between building what looks good versus what feels right? Have you felt the pressure to choose the prestigious path over the personally meaningful one? Or have you made choices that others questioned but felt deeply right to you?
Do whatever the hell you want. That's my best, quickest form of advice to ultimately conclude this entire video. Do whatever the hell it is that you want. Provided I'm talking within the boundaries of the law. Do whatever you want. You want to jump on a cycle, you want to be a psalm goblin, you want to pop oral Winstrol, Decker, Test, and Enthate, Trembolone. In your 20s, there was this Russian that I watched an interview of. Massive bodybuilder in his 20s. You could say like a Sam Sulek type. Some of those dudes are completely aware that they'll not only start losing their hair and look like they're 40 when they've barely hit 23. They know what they're doing. Perhaps they haven't fully grasped the consequences, and a lot of people don't until the consequences smack bang hit them in the face. A lot of people have that perception of, well, it might not happen to me. Well, I might not get sick. Well, if the zombie bites me, I might be the one that's immune to the infection. I might not turn. So there's quite a lot of people that they're aware of the consequences, but they think that they might get away with it. They might be the exception. But there's also those ones that are fully aware of the consequences and simply aren't afraid of them. They're willing to take the risk because they're living in the present. They're living for that moment. So getting back to that Russian bodybuilder that I'm talking about, that was the way he worded it was his meaning to life. It was his life's purpose. He seemed quite at peace and convincing. I believed him for the most part that he accepted the fact that he might potentially pass away before his 35th birthday, but he wanted to achieve the physique that he was ultimately striving to achieve. It was his routine. It was his life's purpose. It was the way he chose to live his life on those kind of terms. And I think society in general has engraved in people that life expectancy is somehow some kind of an indicator of what a fulfilling and good life is. Just because you lived till 91, as this guy is saying in this video, does it really matter if you're burnt out, you got fake relationships, you're all on your own in an old folks home playing bingo? You look back at things maybe your grandchildren are doing. Do you even have a family because you maybe sacrificed that aspect of your life chasing that career? Maybe you got 6 or 7 figures in your bank account, but you're walking with a cane. It hurts to walk up a flight of stairs. You got to get a chairlift installed to get to the second floor of your massive 7-bedroom house. And you watch the TV and you look back and you think, man, I wish I did that. Like I heard Greg Plitt say, I tried and failed is 10 times the man that never went to the arena. Live for today. In my experience, in the life that I've lived, having come close to some pretty dire circumstances multiple times throughout my life, quite literally stared death in the face, I can tell you that there's only so much you can plan for. You can maybe plan for a week in advance, a couple of months at best. But when people start telling me that they're planning for 10 years from now, 20 years from now, taking out some kind of a mortgage that they think they're going to pay off in 30 years, I can't see eye to eye with any of that. I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow, let alone 365 days from now. I don't know what direction life will take me in. And sometimes it's not even about I don't know because I don't have a plan. A lot of the time, shit just don't go according to plan. And it's outside your control. And you can plan all you want. Your final destination may already be predetermined. So if it makes you happy and it ain't affecting anyone else, I say do it. Go for it. As long as you're aware of the potential consequences and repercussions for whatever it is that you're doing, kudos to you. And I don't think that's me being a bad role model or a bad example, because I don't think there's anything quite as bitter and painful as the taste of regret.
I'm sure your insights will help others who are navigating this exact dilemma right now. The alternative approach requires courage because it often means making choices that others don't understand or validate in the short term. But this is precisely what makes it valuable. While everyone else is playing the same game, you're making moves that give you long-term asymmetric advantages. Let me walk you through exactly how to implement each component of the ICE method in your daily life. Starting with identity formation, the goal is to separate your authentic self from your conditioned self. This requires 3 specific practices. First, value excavation, identifying what genuinely matters to you versus what you've been taught should matter. Start by writing down your current goals and then asking why, 5 times for each one.
Sure, if you want. I've tried that method of writing down goals, journaling, diaries. It simply doesn't work for some people. It's just not applicable. Because certain things you just inherently know. They're like a part of your DNA sequence. You don't need to write them down. My way of thinking is if I need to write it down, it's probably not really a goal of mine. Because if something really is truly a goal of mine, I can feel it in my bones. I don't need to write it down. Think about it. Map out the steps to getting there. I just know that that is what I have to do. That is where I have to be. That is what's going to give me purpose. A pen and a piece of paper and me sitting there and reflecting on it, reminding myself. I shouldn't need reminding if it's a true to self goal, my calling in life. You shouldn't even need to turn to a piece of paper that has it written down for you as a self-reminder.
This reveals whether the goal stems from internal values or external pressure. For example, when I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, 5 whys revealed that I wasn't actually interested in law. I wanted the respect and financial security I associated with the profession. This led me to look for ways to achieve those underlying needs that actually aligned with my interests. Second, controlled failure exposure, deliberately putting yourself in situations where you might fail, but the stakes are manageable. This builds the critical skill of separating your identity from your outcomes. I started small, taking a stand-up comedy class where bombing on stage was expected. Learning to fail in a low-stakes environment made me more willing to take calculated risks in higher-stakes areas of life. Third, relationship inventory, systematically evaluating which relationship...
It comes back to that point I made about silver lining of failure. And a quote that I like to believe I coined is, for every negative outcome, so for everything bad that happens in your life, there's always a positive silver lining. I didn't get the wording right to this. Maybe I should have wrote it down. But for every negative action, for every negative outcome, there's always some silver lining. So something really bad, tragic could have happened. Maybe let's just use an example of you made an investment and you lost that money. Or you made an investment and that money times the 100. Like a real life example for me, I remember I made a rather small investment when I was on welfare, on a meme coin, and that meme coin grew to 6 figures. It's the first time I ever saw that much money in my life, especially having been on welfare. What did I do? I put more money in, hoping that the way I looked at it was calculated risk of the inexperience that I had. I thought, well, 6 figures, sure, that's good. That'll last me, 2-3 years, modestly? Maybe 1 year if I live that year slightly lavishly. But if I put in more, how about we turn that 6 figures to 7 figures? Ultimately, it went the other way. It went down, down, and I'm watching it go down, down, down. I still remember the sinking feeling in my throat. I felt like I had anaphylaxis at times. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. But it taught me something. It taught me quite a lot. It taught me about loss, especially financial loss. That was the silver lining for me. It taught me about greed. It taught me about making ample, smart decisions. And it taught me to be more present. I didn't use that example that I've been preaching pretty much since the start of this video of living for the now, living for maybe tomorrow, a week ahead at the most. And if I had taken that 100 grand there and then, even going through the proper channels, perhaps paying 20 or 30 of it in tax, I still would have at least cleared 70k. From welfare to 70k. I could have got myself a decent car. I could have known that I'm well and truly secure to pay my rent for the foreseeable 2, maybe even 3 years if I lived in a share house. But I started thinking the long game. I started thinking, I want $1 million out of this. And then who knows, maybe if I got that $1 million, I would have thought, well, $1 million. 10, maybe 11 years later, that $1 million will be gone and I'll just be back here again. Maybe I actually need 2. Who knows how it would have went down? Like I said, you don't know tomorrow. So, live it for the now.
Energize you?
That's not to say I'm encouraging people to be impulsive. There's a difference between taking risk, calculated risk, having the courage to step out to do something that potentially has some kind of a return in your life, and there's just outright risk that benefits you in no way, shape, or how.
Versus which ones deplete you. This isn't about cutting people off, but about gaining clarity.
Don't take risks that are only going to deplete you. And if the risk pays off, there's basically no payout. You just had, quote unquote fun. For example, you have no driver's license, but you've got a heavily modified car and you go out hooning. It's a risk that gives you absolutely no return on investment with only negative repercussions that will potentially face you, down the road, pun intended, I suppose.
On where to invest your relational energy, create a simple 2-column list with energy givers and energy takers. Review this quarterly and gradually shift your time toward relationships in the first column. This one practice alone can dramatically change your life trajectory. For capacity building, focus on developing these 3 meta skills that create compound returns. First, deep work capacity, your ability to focus intensely on challenging tasks without distraction. In an age of constant interruption, this is becoming a rare and valuable skill. Start with just 30 minutes of completely undistracted work daily. No phone, no email, no social media. Then gradually increase this by 15 minutes each week until you can sustain 2 to 3 hours of deep focus. This practice alone puts you ahead of 95% of your peers. Second, discomfort tolerance. Your ability to stay engaged with difficult emotions and situations rather than avoiding them. This is perhaps the most underrated predictor of long-term success. Begin building this through small, daily discomfort practices. Cold showers, difficult conversations you've been avoiding, or reaching out to people you admire but feel intimidated by. What matters is not the specific discomfort, but your willingness to move toward it rather than away from it. Third, learning agility. Your ability to rapidly acquire new skills and adapt to changing conditions. This is increasingly crucial in a world where specific knowledge quickly becomes obsolete. Develop this by adopting a skill sprint approach, dedicating 30 days to intensively learning one new skill that stretches you. This could be coding, public speaking, a new language, or financial modeling. The content matters less than the process of pushing through the difficult early phase of...
Totally agree. One guy asked me, how do I lose weight? Should I eliminate carbs? How many carbs a day? How much protein a day? What kind of a diet should I follow? Do anything. And I got this advice from Elliot Hulse, one of the first fitness YouTubers ever. Find something and just do it. So if it's a 60-day workout plan that you got for free on Google that's telling you to do push-ups, squats, there's a plan for everything, and so many of them are free. There's plans for complete beginners, and there's plans for SAS selection training, like what kind of training you should do to prepare for a special forces selection course. Whatever it is that you find, diet-wise, whatever it is you find. Keto, fine. Do keto. Stick to keto. Calorie restrictive diet, but eat whatever. Alright, calorie restricted diet. It's so easy nowadays in the sense of you just pull out a phone, scan a barcode. I remember my girlfriend took the piss out of me. Oh, you're counting everything. Eventually it becomes second nature, whatever it is you're doing. At one point in my life I had a step goal. I gradually increased that step goal every single day. It's important to not let it get out of hand, but that's the way you can move forward with this. Just a little bit every day, as he's saying here with the example of productive work with 30 minutes of no phone. Say you leave your phone in the other room and you just sit down and do 30 minutes. Sometimes you'll even find yourself getting into something like a flow state. Every time I sit down to do these videos, I never even plan for them to go for 30, 40, 50, 80, 90 minutes. I never do a script. I never do any kind of preparation. I watch maybe 5 to 10 minutes of the video on my smart TV. I think, yeah, this seems like a decent video to talk about. I never even get this far in any of these videos. But then I sit down and I just start doing them. And in a way, I'm trying to get myself out of my comfort zone. I'm practicing my public speaking skills. I'm doing something that's, I'd like to think, developing me. It's a new skill that I'm adding to my repertoire. My ability to communicate fluently, without stuttering, without umming and ahhing. And even though there might not be any kind of financial or monetary gain, no one might even be watching this far, evaluating any of my work. I'm not doing it for some kind of reciprocal reward from someone else. I'm doing this solely for me.
Learning. My friend, I'm going to share a personal story about how these principles completely transformed my trajectory in just 3 years. But first, let's address the final and most neglected component of the ICE method, energy protection. For energy protection, implement these 3 systems. First, attention hygiene, ruthlessly eliminating inputs that create noise, comparison, or confusion in your life. This might mean deleting social media apps from your phone, using them only on desktop, creating a low information diet where you consume news just once per week, unsubscribing from every email newsletter that doesn't provide consistent value.
I can agree with that. I don't use social media whatsoever, so Snapchat I only really communicate with 2 people on. Hardly even consider that as a form of social media, never delving into any of those shorts or discovery aspects. Eliminating news, I don't entirely agree with, because you still want to know even what the fake news dubbed media is saying. You want to be in the know to a degree. Because I remember I was very biased towards media. And when COVID-19 hit and I was told that everything's shutting down and there's a curfew in place, I didn't believe it at first. Because I actually only received that information about 24 hours prior to the entire event happening. I never watched the news, afternoon, late night news, you name it. I only got it word of mouth, quite literally on the night I was working, and I was told, oh, tonight we shut at 12 a.m. because there's laws taking into effect. It was at a club that usually shut at around 3 in the morning. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? We're shutting at 12 because of laws. Like, yeah, what? Like, haven't you heard? You've been living under a rock? There's a curfew, there's COVID. And it's the first time I heard about it. I couldn't believe it. And then when I started looking into it, it took me by complete surprise. The whole can't leave your house for more than an hour. Eventually, you couldn't even leave your house after 8 p.m. Couldn't go to the gym. Vaccines and passports galore. So sometimes it can serve purpose to watch what the MSN is showing you, the mainstream media. But otherwise, for the most part, I agree with this attention hygiene principle, especially with things like Instagram, where people are showing the most glamorous aspects of their lives. And a lot of those people even have dedicated photographers who take those images, edit them. They're not even writing their own captions for the most part. They're just showing you the highs of their life. And that's all you're seeing. You're not seeing any of the behind the scenes. And for the most part, the behind the scenes wouldn't even be that interesting. And if you are one of those people that is looking at others on social media and you're comparing yourself to them, my advice for you reverts back to what I've been saying throughout the entirety of this video. Just do what makes you happy. If drinking this Red Bull is making you happy, heck, if smoking cigarettes is making you happy, but you're aware of the consequences that I might potentially develop cancer, there might be some kind of a negative repercussion to my action, but I'm still happy to do it, then go be happy to do it. Some people don't smoke a day in their lives and they get lung cancer and fucking die from it.
I implemented this system at 26 and reclaimed approximately 15 hours weekly, time I invested in deep work and relationship building instead. Second, recovery rhythm, establishing consistent patterns of rest and renewal before you need them. Most people wait until burnout to rest, which is like waiting until you're dehydrated to drink water. Design your ideal weekly recovery rhythm with one non-negotiable daily renewal practice. Could be meditation, exercise, reading. One midweek reset evening with no work or screens. One full weekend day for complete disconnection and rejuvenation.
Totally agree with this. Totally agree with this. And that's how I reached burnout. When I was exercising for 4 hours a day without pause for 124 days, I believe I got to. I even told this story before. I had a girl in my bed, but it was approaching midnight and I had to get to about 20,000 steps for that day, for that 24-hour cycle. And I was still about 5,000 steps short. And I only had about 50, maybe 52 minutes left. And I literally told her, like, I got to do this or it breaks my streak. Put my runners on and I ran my heart out through pain. I had pain in my joints and my ankles. When I couldn't run no more, I power walked as best as I could. And I come home drenched and sweating. And that was basically the gist of it. I was essentially on a date that day, but I prioritized these steps, which really counted for nothing. No one was even evaluating them. It wasn't even a competition. It was just me against myself, me and my stubbornness, my stupidity, my idiocracy. But I felt like I had to do that. When even I remember the girl was like, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this? It's not going to make a difference whether you get this 5,000 steps right now or you get 5,000 steps at 2 a.m. the next day. Why does it have to be?" But no, I'm stubborn. I got to do it right now. And that was my lack of recovery rhythm, where you take the time and you just take pause. I've also said this in other videos. It's okay to just stop. So how they say you want to move forward each and every day, you want to take a step forward. It's so long as you don't start taking steps back. The goal is to take steps forward, but it's okay to stop and stand in one place. What you don't want to be doing is trying to leap forward too quickly and end up taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Sometimes it's important to address the recovery rhythm and take pause. Even though you might feel like you still got more in the tank, you still got more to give, just acknowledge that taking this time right now can potentially rejuvenate me to tackle this thing that I want to do right now, to do it even better with higher intensity, stronger will, better rejuvenated tomorrow.
Third, decision minimization, reducing low-impact choices to free up mental energy for what matters. Decision fatigue silently erodes your capacity to make good choices about important things. Create systems that eliminate repetitive decisions, meal templates for different days of the week, capsule wardrobe with interchangeable pieces, automated savings and investments. morning and evening routines that run on autopilot. The power of this approach became clear in my own life when I hit 29. While many friends were experiencing burnout, relationship turmoil, or career confusion, I had...
Yeah, so we are creatures of habit. That's where all this plays in. It's always the hardest to take that first step, whether it's a weight loss fitness journey, whether it's learning that new skill, sitting down at the computer, as he put it, for half an hour a day, just putting the phone in the other room and starting off with putting it in the other room for half an hour the next week, 45 minutes. Whether it's every time you walk past the kitchen to your bedroom, you stop, drop, and do 10 push-ups. The next day, you stop, drop, and do 11 push-ups. And you think, yeah, this is easy. I could theoretically do 30. But you keep that rhythm going by just doing 10, the next day 11, 12, 13, so on and so forth. Same thing with the self-preservation and avoiding burnout. You tell yourself that, yeah, I could do a little bit more. I could push myself a little bit more. I can potentially attend this event, but will it serve me? Maybe it's better for me just to take a step back. Is this relationship worth my while? Is going out to meet my friends in the city, get on the piss, is it going to benefit me? How will I feel tomorrow? How is this potentially going to impact my set routine that I've already established? It's important to maintain a degree of flexibility in said routine, but you also don't want to make your routine so stringent that it has absolutely no room for flexibility. You essentially become the stick that will not bend, you just simply break. And that's what ultimately translates to what he's saying here, I believe, when it comes to burnout.
Built a strong sense of identity, valuable skills, and sustainable energy management. This wasn't because I was special, it was because I'd invested in the right foundations while they were busy maintaining appearances. I notice I'm feeling pulled toward this opportunity because of how it would look to others, not because it aligns with my actual values and direction. I need to pause and check whether this serves my long-term vision or just my short-term ego. This simple self-check, which I now use automatically, has saved me countless hours and thousands of dollars pursuing things that would have looked good but felt wrong. As you implement the ICE method, be aware of these 4 critical investments that most people in their 20s completely overlook. 1. Investing in psychological flexibility. Most people spend their 20s trying to figure out exactly who they are and what they want, creating rigid identities and plans that eventually become prisons.
I've done a lot of behavioral groups in the past, a lot of psychological groups, meetings. A question that has come up time and time again, which a lot of people struggle to answer, and I think it's a question, if you took anything out of this video, especially if you got this far, thank you very much, but you don't have to write them down, but maybe write them down to make it easier on yourself. Write down, try and get 5, but at least start with 3 core principles. And when you write them down, be able to explain them. So for example, some people might write down, my key principle is honesty. But then write down, how is it that you live by the core principle of honesty? Don't just write down, well, I've never told a lie. I've never told a mistruth. I've never been deceptive. Faith. How is it that faith is a part of my core identity? How do I practice my faith? These are just some examples. So write down your core fundamental principles. If you don't know what I mean by core fundamental principles, your core fundamental principles are essentially the pillars that form your identity. They are things that you will not break, will not bend on. They're essentially foundations of make you who you are. You don't change them for anyone. They essentially set you in your ways as to who you are as a person. So what identifies you? Those are your core principles. And a lot of people really have to sit there, think about it. And I remember doing this exercise. People are looking left and right. Who's writing what down? Okay. Courage. Okay, yeah. Commitment. Yeah. Okay, yeah. When you're starting to look around the room of what others are writing down, it just goes to show that it's not really a part of your core principle. Like I mentioned about it being a part of your DNA. Your goals, your life's purpose, you feel it within your bones. Same with your core principles, your identity. And I understand that in your teens, even in your 20's, that doesn't just come to you because you want it so. It takes time for that to develop, to evoke, to stir up and brew inside you. Through life experience, through the process of aging, through overcoming guilt and grief and despair and depression and negative things, where I'm saying that there's always a silver lining to every negative experience that you have throughout the course of your life. Through every lesson that you learn, whether it was through success or failure.
What they miss is that the most valuable skill is not certainty, but the ability to adapt and thrive amid uncertainty. In my mid-20s, I created an elaborate 5-year plan for my career, relationship, and location. When the company I worked for unexpectedly shut down, I initially panicked because reality had violated my plan. What I eventually realized was that the plan itself was the problem.
Yep, I pretty much said exactly this before he even got to this step. There's only so much you can plan with the degree of uncertainty. The plan could be foolproof in your eyes, but the reality of the world is that it doesn't revolve around you. And I don't mean that in a negative kind of a way that you're not important. I mean that a lot of things that happen around us are simply not dictated by us and are not in our control, no matter how much we want it so.
Not its disruption. The solution is to develop provisional rather than permanent identities, build skills, and pursue directions while remaining open to evolution. Ask, what am I curious about now? Rather than, what is my passion forever? This approach treats your 20s as exploration rather than declaration. 2. Investing in relationship depth over breadth. The pressure to network and maintain large social circles often leads to dozens of shallow connections rather than a few deep ones. Yet research consistently shows that quality, not quantity, of relationships determines well-being and even professional success over time. I spent years maintaining 500 plus LinkedIn connections and attending every industry event possible. Eventually, I realized I was investing enormous energy for minimal returns while neglecting the handful of relationships that actually provided genuine support and opportunity.
Realistically, if you are wholeheartedly invested in a relationship, we'll use the simple example of a girlfriend or a wife, especially if you've got a family, children with that person. There is no exterior room for your energy to leak out elsewhere. You can maybe maintain a few friendships with guys that you maybe went to high school with. Perhaps you shared some kind of long-term employment with them. But even those relationships, more or less, are fleeting. Sometimes people relocate, circumstances change. You simply lose touch. It's not so much that things can end on bad terms. It's just that you go your own way. Your childhood friend has a family, has a wife, kids of his own. You go your way. You pursue a job overseas in a different continent. You meet someone. You start living your life. And sometimes there's those forks in the road where you simply get separated from people. From people that you've got no ulterior beef with or any kind of problem with. You just fall out of touch. So when it comes to investing your energy in relationships, it's not so much that you want a return from your investment in that relationship, but the main thing that you want to address is that the relationship that you are in, the relationship that you are investing in, is a two-way street relationship. That your effort and energy is being reciprocated. This might sound a little bit selfish, a little bit, well, what do I get out of you kind of thing. But that's the reality of life, and that's the reality of interacting with people. If you feel as though meeting up with this person is costing me time and effort, and I've heard this from girls when you go on a date, oh, that's too far for me. 30-minute drive, oh, that's a little bit too much effort. If people don't want to meet you halfway with the effort that you put in, they're simply not worth your time. You want to be around those sort of people that don't raise those kind of questions, where you don't have those sort of discussions and disputes and arguments of, well, I paid last time, so it's your turn to pay. I suppose that's a good way of defining that new age term people use of, we've got good chemistry, where you simply don't need to have that kind of a conversation of, well, I made the effort last time, so this time you come to me. You simply find the common ground, and it needs not be said, because you want each other's company. You want to be in that relationship, whether it be intimate or a friendship kind of a relationship. You want to be around one another, and you simply don't pose questions of who's going to get their wallet out, who's driving the extra mile, who's making the bigger effort.
The fix is simple but countercultural. Identify the 5 to 10 relationships that bring the most value to your life and career, then deliberately deepen these at the expense of maintaining superficial connections. 1 ally is worth 100 acquaintances. 3. Investing in process over outcomes. Most 20-somethings obsess over achievements and milestones while neglecting the systems and habits that actually produce results over time. They want the promotion without building the skills, the relationship without developing emotional intelligence, the body without consistent exercise. I fell into this trap repeatedly, setting ambitious goals without establishing the daily practices necessary to achieve them. The result was a cycle of initial enthusiasm followed by inevitable disappointment. The solution is to reverse this focus completely. Identify the daily process that will eventually create your desired outcome. Then make that process, not the outcome.
In other words, routine. In other words, commitment. In other words, Jocko Willnick's quote, discipline equals freedom.
Your primary focus. Fall in love with the routine rather than the result. 4. Investing in longer time horizons. Perhaps the most consequential mistake in your 20s is optimizing for immediate rewards rather than playing long-term games. In a culture of quarterly targets and instant gratification, the ability to make decisions with 5, 10, or 20-year horizons is increasingly rare and valuable. At 24, I turned down a higher-paying job to work at a smaller company where I could develop a broader skill set. The short-term cost was about $15,000 in annual salary. The long-term benefit was developing capabilities that eventually allowed me to earn 5 times that amount and have far more autonomy.
But that's the plan. That might not necessarily be the outcome. It gets back to what I've been saying for most of this video too. And it kind of clashes with what he said about working for a company that ultimately went bankrupt. See, your long-term benefit is only a plan in theory. But that's what I mean, and I get back to the point of it's not entirely dependent on you.
The remedy is...
It's like this thing that I've seen on Facebook, just to really summarize my point. It was something about, would you take $1 billion now? Or would you take $1 million a day for the rest of your life? And then someone was like, well, I'll have well and truly over $1 billion if I just take the $1 million a day by a certain point. It's like, would you rather take the lump sum or the fortnightly payment? See, my philosophy on it is always take the lump sum. So if we're going to revert back to this of $1 billion now or $1 million every day, take the billion now. And my answer to that is the billion is now. I have it now. The million every day is not up to you to get that million every day. Someone's giving you that million. This is obviously all in theory, but hear me out because I want you to really understand my point. You are dependent on someone coming through with that million for them to give it to you every day for the rest of your life. What happens if this person that's meant to give you this million every single day, what if they die? What if whatever company it is goes under? What if World War III breaks out? Electricity goes down, there's an EMP blast. The million every day versus the billion right now. It's like those competitions where you see, well, would you rather take this car? And then you read the fine print. The car will be delivered to you in approximately 30 to 60 days. Or would you rather have 100 grand? It's like, you know, those competitions that you see on Facebook. Or would you rather have the 100 grand wired to your account right now? Hell yeah. Even though the car might be worth 150 in theory, and maybe, just maybe, I can sell it for 150 and make a little bit more money, all the risk associated with it. What if that company, say they're doing something shady, they get sued, whatever. Point is, the car ultimately doesn't get delivered. The car does get delivered, it gets stolen, you got to worry about other things. You take the money, it's cleared within 10 seconds, it's in your account, you've got a certainty. So this is what I mean by long-term planning, especially when he's talking decades, 15, 20 years. If it all goes well, it all goes well. You take out a 30-year mortgage, if it all goes well, it all goes well. And what if it don't? But I don't think there's a right or wrong. It all just comes full circle to what I'm saying about live in the present. And I think so many people, and it doesn't just relate to people in their 20s, 30s, so many people forget to live in the present. Live for today, live for tomorrow. You know, be grateful and thankful for the good things that you have around you today. The roof over your head, the people potentially around you, the food on your table, the fact that you got power, heating, you're warm. Don't worry about what's going to potentially be looking down, you know, what my bank account, what kind of a house will I be in. You don't even know what your health is potentially going to be like next week, the day after. And that's one thing that this video, he's spoken so long, it's the one thing with about 1:30 left that he hasn't addressed is your health. Without health, nothing means shit. Not connections, not acquaintances, not even your best friends. None of it matters if you're disabled, to put it politely. If you've got no health, if you've got no mobility, if you didn't look after yourself, or even if you did and you were just struck down by a lightning bolt of misfortune, all your plans and ambitions go out the window. Let's just say whatever it is that you acquire, whether it be through status, respect, or monetary gain, even your relationships, when your time comes, you don't take any of that with you. So with that, I'll let the video play out, and I'll see you in the next one.
To regularly ask, what would my future self thank me for investing in right now? Then allocate at least 20% of your resources, time, money, energy to investments that may not pay off for years, but will eventually create exponential returns. When you focus on building your identity, capacity, and energy management in your 20s, when you prioritize the invisible inner work over visible outer achievements, you create a foundation that can support extraordinary results for decades to come. This isn't about delaying gratification entirely, it's about finding deeper satisfaction in development rather than display. As author Ryan Holiday puts it, the obstacle is the way. The challenges and discomforts you move toward rather than away from in your 20s become the very source of your advantages later in life. I challenge you to choose just one element of the ICE method this week and take one small action to implement it. Maybe it's a 30-minute deep work session, a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, or deleting a social media app that triggers comparison. Start small, but start now. I guarantee that even these initial steps will begin to shift your trajectory in powerful ways. Remember, In a world obsessed with looking successful, the true power move is becoming the kind of person who can't help but succeed over time, whether anyone is watching or not. If you found this approach valuable, this next video right here will take you even further. Your choice. Your life. Start now.
Jack off time! Where's my sock?